everybody, today we're going to be looking at Stretchy String again, and today we're going to take it step by step and show you exactly how you can implement Stretchy String. And in today's example, we're going to make nunchucks that are going to have these sphere references be the piece that it stretches from here to here. So it's going to be a taut line no matter what, and it's going to stretch from this point to this point. So should look pretty cool, should be a lot of fun. And to get us started, I've already created these two grabbable objects. The sphere is the position that we need, so make sure you have some sort of reference of where the string will be stretched between. So it's each of these top spheres. And then this is going to be the string that we're going to be stretching. And the first thing we need to do to get ourselves started is pull out a script gizmo. So we're going to go ahead and pull this one out. Open up the properties panel here, and let's start thinking about some variables. So if you're new to scripting, the first thing I like to think about when I'm creating a new script is variables. And actually, I guess very first is the name, so we'll plug that in. We'll call this inString, which is a weird name, but it's the Nunchucks string. And then on our variables tab, we're going to go ahead and start putting in some variables. Now, if you're watching with us live, I can actually see your questions in here. That'll do damage. Appreciate that. Feel free to leave your comments, questions as we're going. I can see them, so I'll be taking a peek over there as we go. So we got our in string, and now thinking about variables, we have two reference positions. So I call these position 1. So POS1, and that's an object that's going to reference that position. We click confirm, and then we need position 2. So we're going to do the exact same thing, POS2. And click confirm. All right, so there's position 1 and 2, and those are going to be dynamically changing this entire time. And so I think this might actually be a very good time to use a brand new code block. So often we like to delete when world is started. You just grab that, pull down towards the thumbstick to delete, and then back over here on our events tab, there's a new code block called update events. And on update allows us to calculate on a per frame basis. So this means every frame it's going to be updating its position. So now that we have on update default after delta times seconds, I don't fully understand delta time, but I assume that's the amount of time that happens between each frame, and default is fine. This is my first time using it, to be very honest, but I understand how it works, so I think default is fine. Sensei Jay is here as well, and he might have some tips for us if we need it. He's actually the one who did the tutorial that showed me how to use this, which is kind of cool, which is on the channel, so like I'm learning while you're learning. How crazy is that? Absolutely love it. That is so cool. Like that is like the Vidyuu motto almost. So let's continue and think about this from the standpoint of we have this position of this silver ball and the position of this silver ball. The script runs on this piece of string, and the first thing we should do is try to get the string to be right in the middle of these two positions. So let's start by moving it to that position. So right here, you'll see motion, and we have instant motion move to. Because this is happening so fast, I think instant motion will be fine. If it's not, we'll switch to move to over time in a minute. So let's go ahead and grab move to, drag it over to here, and we are moving self. The position is not this default position, so this would be world space, 1 meter to the left and 0, 0. So it's like right here is where that's referencing, but we want the position between those 2 points. So we're going to go ahead and delete this for now. Also going to put these straps on. Oh my gosh, don't say that out loud. I've got the strings on my wrist tightened, so we don't have to worry about these nunchucks going loose. And now we're going to move self to the position between those two positions. So how do we get the position between those two positions? Well, there's actually a really incredible code block that does this for us. Under your operators tab, if you scroll down, you're going to find one called lerp. This stands for linear interpolation. So it's not very scary. Linear just means it happens uniformly from one point to another, and interpolation is determining a position between those 2 points. And so you'll note that you have a from and a to, and then alpha determines where between those 2 points. So if we head to our values tab and scroll down to number, the first one that we can fill in is alpha because we know that we want to be dead center between those 2 points. So we can type in 0.5, meaning 50% of the way between the from and the to position. We'll then head back to the operators tab, scroll down to object. We can find position of object. If we bring that over, we can thumbstick to the right to duplicate it into both of these positions. And now we just need to drop the references we built earlier from over here under our variables tab, position 1 and position 2 into the respective slots. Now with that set up, it should be working. So all we have to do is open this object here's property panel by pressing forward on the thumbstick to open that, and then drop down, select the in-string script. We do need to reference the position, otherwise it's going to go to 0, 0, I think. Nope, it's just out of this world. So let's go ahead and stop the world for a second so that it's not referencing an empty parameter. You see these slots are empty. We can open this this properties panel, then click the zoom in button so that we can open the properties panel of this ball object here. Now I did want to turn off collisions on this ball object. So this will be the grabbable piece, and this is just a way to make this a little bit more efficient. Now that we've got this, we can then zoom out. Closing out of this one, we can drag the sphere reference over to position 2. And I like that this is the right hand, this is the left hand, so I'm thinking position 1 is left, position 2 is right. And now we can close out of that. And we want to do that as here as well. So we're going to zoom in, open this properties panel, and then turn off collidable and drag this into position 1. We can then close out of all these property panels. And if you double click your index trigger, it'll zoom you out really quickly, or you can press the button on the properties panel to zoom out as well. Okay, so with that set up, all we have to do is hit play, and it should be between the two. And we can test this out by grabbing this, and you can see it is moving pretty quickly. Look at that. Nice. That's awesome. So with that set up, I'm going to go ahead and hit undo so it's back in that position. We're going to stop this and start getting this to rotate to the right position. So if I was to slide this to here and then hit play, you'll see that the rotation is off. So we want to make sure it rotates correctly. Back on our script, we can head back to the motion tab where we're going to find rotate to. We'll drag that over here. We are indeed rotating self, which represents the string because that's what we're rotating on. You can see that it's already started rotating, and you can mess with that rotation by like clearing this out here. But what we want it to do is actually rotate to the direction between the two positions. And so we're going to delete this one as well, because this is just a static rotation. And so you saw it changing in the background there. I know it's a little hard to see, but what we want to do here is determine a new rotation. So if we go into operators and scroll down to vector math, you're going to find look at. It kind of works the way you'd think it would. It like looks towards something, right? But that's where it stops. So like it does work somewhat like what it sounds like, as long as you know what you're doing. And so I'm going to help you understand that. So over here on our values tab, I'm finding a vector input, which we're dragging into the up slot. And so for the most basic scenario here with this object where it's a singular piece of object, we can set this to 0, 1, 0. In many cases, this is not okay, and you need to grab the upward direction of something to make sure it's constantly aligning with the upward direction. I might go into a little more detail on that in just one moment. So then the forward direction is calculated by taking position 1 and subtracting position 2. And so if we take those two positions and subtract them, we get the distance between here and here as a vector, and the direction of that vector is the direction we want to look. And so if that doesn't make a ton of sense, then just kind of do this and it'll work. And I always get this backwards, so I'm going to try and do this the opposite of what I normally do. So we'll go ahead and drop the minus symbol in here. So that's from the top of your operators tab right here under basic operators. And then we'll actually, we can just duplicate these down from up here. So we got position of 1 and position of 2. So grab this one, thumbstick to the right, grab this one, thumbstick to the right. And with that, it should be working. And so we'll go ahead and try this out by grabbing this here. And look at that. It's constantly rotating in the direction of this sphere. It's a little lagged behind, and I'll show you how we can fix that in just a moment. But really, that's looking pretty good. So nice. And it doesn't seem to kind of like freak out. Maybe right here it might. I'm trying to see. Yeah. See how it turns? That's where the 0, 1, 0 comes into play. And we're not going to get into that. It's just really not relevant to this tutorial, but it is something worth thinking about. So I'm going to kind of briefly explain it. So if you think about this looking towards this direction, the reality of this looking in this direction is that it could be rotated any 360 degrees around this axis and still be pointing in this direction. So we have to tell it which way to point upwards, and that's what this is doing. And so when it happens to actually point upwards, that's when you start to see some funky things happening. It's just very unlikely to happen in your use case. So now you understand what it's doing, so hopefully that'll help as well. Okay, so we've got the motion, we've got the rotation. The last thing we need to do is the stretch. So the stretchy string stretches by going to the Move To tab and grabbing the Scale To and dragging that over to the left. Oh gosh. And that is a way we don't want it to scale. So we're going to go ahead and pull this down and delete it. When we're thinking of scale, the scale is only along one of the three axes that affects the cylinder. And so on world start, we should be saving its current scale. So when world is started, we want to only update one of the axes. So we're going to go and create a new variable. And if we drop down, we can select a vector. Now a vector is representative of an X, Y, and Z. It's often considered a position, but it can also represent a direction, a scale, and kind of many more things, even velocity. In this case, it's going to represent scale. So X, Y, and Z will represent the scale of the X, Y, and Z values of the string. And if you haven't found that before, it's under the attributes tab of our cylinder, and you can find that right here. So you can see there's 3 values, X, Y, and Z. And so now that we know that it is the Z that we're adjusting, this actually helps us because we want to know that these are going to stay 0.03 and it's going to be 0.09. Let me show you the easy method first, then we'll dive into this. So we'll go ahead and click cancel. We'll leave that there for now. And then over here under operators, if we scroll up, no, down to new vector from XYZ under vector math, we can drop that in here. And we just learned that it's 0.03 in the X and the Y. So if we type in 0.03, we can just duplicate that into here. And then Z represents the distance between point A and point B, or position 1 and position 2. And we can get the distance by using distance too. So we'll go ahead and drag that into the Z. And then all we need to do is drag position 2 and position 1. Order doesn't matter here. And now that's calculated the distance. So if I hit play, this should scale between the two. There we go. And so now I can drag this around. And it's a little bit slow right now, so we're going to fix that in just a moment, but you can see that it's constantly moving to that position. So that is how we get our stretchy string up and working. That is pretty sweet, but if you wanted to not have to type these 0.03 in, like say we scaled this up or scaled it down, we'd want to then go to world start and save these values. So that's where we go to our new variables, drop down, select vector. In this case, it'll be a scale vector, which we'll call origin scale. There we have our origin scale. We'll click confirm. And now with that, we can go to our values tab. At the very top, you'll find a set to. We'll set that on world start. Back on our variables tab, we'll drag origin scale into the left side. And then where do we get that scale? It's actually over here, right next to position of object. So we'll scroll up just a hair. There it is, scale of object, dragging that into here. And this is the scale of self. So we can drag that into that position. Oh, and I messed up. So we thumbstick to the right to duplicate. That's how we get a copy of that. So we've now got our origin scale and scale of self. There we go. And then here we have our 0.03. And so what I'd like to do is take 2 vectors and add them together. So what we're going to do to make this a little easier to read is go to our variables tab and create a new variable. And this will be a vector called current scale. And this is just for visibility, so it's easier to read on the screen. You could do this the more complex way, which is just put them all inside of this scale function. But right now we can set the scale. So this current scale can be set here, and we just drag this in for now. And so that's one really easy way to do this. And then we can thumbstick to the right to duplicate the current scale in here. And now this is doing the exact same thing as it was doing before, but we want to take this scale and not use this 0.03 and not use this 0.03. And so I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 into both of these slots here. So we'll go backspace and make that a 0 as well. And so now that the current scale has you can see it just disappeared out there. It's only scaling along one axis. We can now set current scale to be plus. And so if we go to our operators tab and scroll to the top, there's a plus symbol, drag that over and drop that here. And so now we can add to the current scale that we just calculated with a portion of this origin scale. So if we go up to multiply by, drop that in here, we can then grab origin scale and multiply it by a vector. And so the way this works is this current scale is going to get multiplied 1 for 1 on these. And so we only want to keep this value and this value. So we want to type in 1 here and 1 here, so that way we keep the X and Y, and then we want to clear the Z out of the origin scale. So by keeping that as 0, it deletes it. And now it will stay the original scale, and I just have to hit stop and play for it to start working, I thought. There it is. When world is started, set origin scale to scale of self, set current scale. Oh, right here is meant to be origin scale. So we take origin scale multiplied by 110. There we go. Okay, so now we've got set current scale to that value for the distance in the Z slot, and then we're adding to it with the X and Y values from origin scale. And like that, we can hit play, and it's now stretching between the two. And we could grab this and this and this. It's weird how that's functioning. And then scale it. And you'll see that the scale stays the same. I'm going to try and undo that if I can. And didn't exactly undo because the script was running. But I can fix this by just typing in 0.03 and 0.03 here as well. All right, there we go. So now like that, we have our nunchucks working fabulously. We'll hit play and those are going to work great. Now let's actually come in as a player, grab these, And you can see, you know, you're starting to get some kind of cool action, but the delay is really bad, right? Like that's just unacceptable. And so the way we fix this, actually, I guess I want to do one last thing before we let this go. So right here, where we are setting current scale, you can actually just grab this new vector. In fact, I'm going to delete current scale here. I'm going to drag this into the A slot, and then I'm going to drag this new vector into the B slot, and we can just delete this here. That makes it look a little cleaner. So all we're doing is setting current scale to the addition of that current one plus the previous one. And so it's just adding the two together in one line rather than two, so it's a little easier to read. And then to make this really responsive, from the script settings dropdown, you can change it from default to local. Now, local comes with a lot of things to think about, but I don't think there's any issues with this, so it should be okay to make this one local. Like if we had a return script on this, it might not work. So I'm not going to speak too much because I might break my NDA, but scripting and local scripting is just always, it's still very much in development. Lots of changes being constantly made. So the way I make a locally scripted object work is there's a script in the essentials bundle called other object return. We made that script in the microphone video tutorial. And so what other object return is, allows you to return on other objects. So it's a pretty cool script. So now that this is set up, if I come in here and I grab these, oh, it does seem to be more responsive. It's definitely more responsive, right? But that lag is still way stronger. Is it? Oh, no, because this is not transferring ownership when this is grabbed. Never mind. It's not as responsive as I was hoping it would be. Okay. So then to transfer ownership, we need to listen to. If you got as far as that, this might be getting a little hard, but so sorry. What I wanted to do, we need to transfer ownership of everything when this item is grabbed by a player. And so these could actually run regular return scripts now that I'm thinking about it. What we can do is attach a script to this. No, we need to listen to it. So back on our variables tab, we're going to create another object variable. So yeah, if you made it this far and this is like too much, just stop here. Like you've already done it. And like there's some really cool stuff you can do with this piece of stretchy string. And like you've already learned a ton. But for our purposes, we're going to make this perfect. And so under object, we need to reference we'll call this grab one. Since there's two pieces you could grab, this will be the first one. And what we want to do is listen to all the events on grab one. And so this is going to receive like when the object is grabbed by a player. And so that's what listen to allows us to do. And so we'll go ahead and grab one here. And then back on our events tab, we're going to receive when object is grabbed by player. So I'm going to drag this right to here. And so when the object is grabbed by player, we want to transfer ownership of everything to that player. So back here under actions at the bottom, we can find transfer ownership. There it is. Drag that into here. We're transferring this to the player. We're going to need a few of these. So I'm going to duplicate this 4 times because we're transferring ownership of self. And the objects that you grab should have automatically been transferred, but we'll duplicate it in here just in case for grab 1 at least. And then position 1 and 2, we might also need to transfer ownership of that as well. We might also not, but let's see, that should definitely work. And then let's see how much we can delete. Oh, that's still really slow. Okay, make sure I made that local. I did. And everything was transferred ownership-wise, so that should make it fast. Maybe this isn't fast enough. Let's try prefix. Don't know if that'll make a difference. It doesn't appear to even work, which is so shocking. Default seems to be the only way for that to work. Stop play. And I think what we might want to do is make our own update loop. I assumed that this would be really fast, but I think it's a lot slower than we think. So what we want to do is say when world is started, make a new loop. And to do that, we go to our events tab and slide up to send event to object. And this event is going to be called loop. All right, so we've got our loop event being sent to self. And then down here, we're going to, we can just drop down. Oh, nope, never mind. We'll say when event is received, drop down and select loop and no parameters. We're just going to drag all of these items up into here and then delete this and then grab the loop from up here and duplicate it into here. And I believe this runs 60 times per second. So let's give it a go. This should be the most responsive. Okay, I might be going crazy. Does this look good on computer side of things? No, it's definitely... I don't know, I'm losing my mind. It should be faster. I'm not sure. It should be way faster than that. Anybody catching something I'm missing? I don't think so, though. This loop is running as fast as possible. We transferred ownership. Maybe... Oh my gosh. I figured out what I missed. I am so silly. I always forget to do this. You've seen this like almost every live stream now, so if you do this too, definitely you'd understand what I'm saying. So under our script here, I forgot to reference this object, so nothing was actually happening. Oh, I feel so silly. There we go. That makes sense. Okay, then. And maybe we should roll back a second. Let's first test this, because this should be working. Hit play. This should now be working great. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Okay, so now you've got the really nice taut line between the two. And if you wanted to take this a step further, you could like make a line that has physics and then like constantly move. Anyway, you could really take this and make it look more realistic than this by having 3 pieces. But this is pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know how to use nunchucks, but kind of cool there. So I'm guessing we didn't actually need to do this. I'm guessing we did only need to do this. I'm going to put this back in the on update event and it should now work. So we'll try that as well. There you are. Okay. Yep, so that works on update as well. And then the other thing I thought we could convert was all of this. I think we only need to do transferring ownership of self. And so when world is started, I'm going to drag this up into here and grab... So this is just for debugging purposes. So basically I want to make sure that I'm right. So I'm going to duplicate this, duplicate that, duplicate a couple more times, and I'm transferring ownership of everything back to the server, so that way when I grab it, we're getting an accurate test. So I'm gonna go hit stop and then play and then delete all of this. Now that everything's been transferred to the server, I'll stop this again, and theoretically this is the full script right there. So let's go and hit play once more, and now when I grab this, it should be really fast. Oh yeah, there we go. So basically what's happening here, and the reason that we wanted to remove all that, is because when you grab an object, you become the owner of that object and its subset objects. So like this guy here, as well as this one here. So I didn't need to transfer ownership of this guy or the ball or this guy or the ball. It was all already done. So we just needed to transfer ownership of this string here. There we go. Yeah, so I really didn't want to get into the ability to like do this, but if you really want me to, let's see. When letting go, we lock the string. No, we're not going to do it. We're just not going to do it. Sorry, Rainmaker. That is definitely a tutorial for another day. But basically, you could, and then you could position this so it was always facing in the same position of the string, and then you'd use like a spring spin code block so that it's constantly spinning, and then you'd keep the string tight and set it to have like a length limit. And so we are going to stop here for our stretchy string tutorial, but great work, y'all. This is a really cool object, so thanks for voting for it. We'll see you in Horizon. Bye.